The wind came down from the hills like a tired animal, nosing dust along the porches of Willow Draw Ranch. Eli Barrow swung from the saddle with hands that shook from hours of hunting small tracks and larger fears. The barn door stood open a careful finger's width. Inside, lamp glow trembled over straw, leather, and two small shapes bundled in a faded quilt. Clara and Jude slept cheek to cheek, safe as kittens. Holding them, one elbow cradling, one palm steady on their backs, sat a woman in a threadbare shawl. "Eyes steady and rimmed with road dust, sir," she whispered, voice rough with cold and miles. They were shivering. "I couldn't leave." Eli knelt hard enough for the hay to bite his knees. He touched each dark head, counted breath like prayer, and only then found words. "You found them. They found me," she said. "Mercy Hale. I came about the notice for work. Laundry, barn sweeping. Whatever you've got." He carried the twins into the house, Mercy moving beside him with the unshowy skill of someone who has never been allowed to drop anything. When the children were settled and the kettle began to sing, Mercy told a spare story. A husband buried fast from fever on the Kansas line, a winter of sowing for bread, a handbill that promised a roof for work. She had walked more than ridden. At dusk she had reached the barn. Two children had stepped out of the straw and into her shawl like they had been waiting all along. Boots hit the porch. In came the sheriff, Tom Dixon, with May from the creek settlement, and leaning in the doorway like a shadow with teeth, Red Jack Barlow. Talk of wolves, of men testing fences, of trouble sniffing for soft spots. Red Jack's smile never reached his eyes. "Late to be hiring, Barrow," he said, gaze sliding over Mercy. "Some folks send a pretty face to measure a house before they rob it." Mercy didn't shrink. "Sir," she said, "I own nothing but these hands, and they are for work." The sheriff tipped his hat. May's calm glance lingered on Mercy with something like approval. When they left, the house felt larger around the four of them. Eli, Mercy, and the sleeping children, and the cold pressed its face against the panes. "I can pay little at first," Eli said, "but I can feed you. A bed, a roof. The barn needs a kinder eye than mine. I'll earn it," Mercy answered, and before dawn she did. Bread turned out golden, the mare soothed with a murmur and a comb. Hinges oiled until doors closed like manners. Snow began before noon, the quiet kind that makes the world feel decided. They worked inside that hush, almost easy until a fist pounded the door. A man in a ragged army coat stood there, hat low, eyes quick and hungry. He smelled of whiskey and far roads. "I'm looking for Mercy Hale," he said. "She came ahead of me." "She's my wife." The room tilted. Mercy found the table's edge with her fingers, but didn't retreat. "My husband is buried under a cedar with a cross of nails," she said. "I hammered them myself." The stranger's mouth bent. "Then you married twice," he drawled. "Because I've paper says I own your debt? And you?" Clara's carved horse slipped to the floor with a small wooden gasp. Eli stepped forward. Not loud, but the kind of sure that makes other men look to their boots. "This is a house," he said. "Watch your words." Snow thickened, sealing the world in white. The fire snapped. Mercy lifted her chin, eyes steady as winter stars. Outside, wolves tested the fences. Inside, something meaner than weather smiled like it had already won. The storm hit hard, a white curtain swallowing Willow Draw. Drifts piled high against the windows, and the world beyond the fence disappeared. Inside, the fire glowed steady, and Mercy worked without asking, sweeping the floors, tending the children, mending the torn sleeve on Eli's shirt. But every sound carried tension. The man who called himself Silas Reed sat near the hearth, coat steaming, eyes small and mean above a cracked grin. The papers he brought never left his pocket. Eli watched him the way a man watches a coiled snake. He had seen enough drifters to know trouble when it wore politeness like a borrowed coat. Mercy moved with quiet grace, but her hands trembled when Silas's boots scraped the floor. Clara and Jude, sensing danger in the air, stayed close to her skirts. "You shouldn't believe everything you read," Eli said that night, nodding toward the paper Silas had shown. "A man can forge a signature easier than he can tell the truth," Silas chuckled. "And a rancher can talk pretty when he's got reason to." His eyes flicked to Mercy. Don't get ideas, Barrow. She's got debts older than your kindness. Debts die with the man who made them, Mercy said, voice low but firm. My husband owed no one anything after he met his grave. That's not what the ink says, Silas replied. The days blurred together in the storm's white silence. Eli spent the daylight mending fences and checking stock. Mercy kept the house warm, reading old books to the children and humming lullabies no one in these parts had heard before. Silas waited, patient as rot. He tried to corner Mercy when Eli was gone, just close enough to make her heart pound. You and me, he said once. We could leave this snow trap, start over. You'd pay what you owe, and I'd forget the rest. Mercy's eyes did not rise from her sewing. You mistake me, sir, she said. I am not for sale. That night, Eli sat by the window, cleaning his rifle. Mercy poured him coffee and spoke softly. He frightens the children. And me sometimes. Eli nodded, jaw tightening. He won't for long. Outside, wolves howled close to the barn. Eli took the lamp and went to check the fences. The cold bit like steel. From the tree line, he saw movement, a man's shadow, not a wolf's. The figure disappeared when he raised the lantern, but the tracks were clear. Narrow boots, spur nicked on the right heel. Red Jack Barlow. By dawn, the storm thinned to a gray whisper. The sheriff arrived through the drift, coat white with snow. I heard you've got company, he said, stepping inside and nodding to Silas. He's got a claim he says ties Mercy to a dead man's debt, Eli said. He's been waiting out the storm. The sheriff's gaze cooled. Storm's over, he said. So's his waiting. Silas stood, hands open, smirk sharp as a blade. Law says I can keep her till the judge rides through. Might be a while yet. Law says a lot of things, the sheriff replied, and most of them need a good man to make sense of them. You'll stay in the bunkhouse tonight, Mr. Reed. Door locked from the outside. When the sheriff left, Eli lingered by the window. Mercy came to stand beside him. Her voice was soft, like she feared the walls might listen. He won't stop, she said. Men like that never do. Eli turned to her, his face half in shadow. Then he'll find out what happens when a man mistakes mercy for weakness. Outside, the wolves howled again, closer this time, as if they could smell the truth tightening its grip around the ranch. And somewhere in the distance, under the last falling snow, boot prints led toward the north fence, where danger had not yet said its last word. The sun returned slow, melting the storm into streams that whispered through the yard. Willow Draw Ranch breathed again. Mercy hung linens in the pale light, the twins laughing as they chased each other through puddles. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to feel safe. But peace in the west was like morning frost, bright, brief, and doomed to melt. Eli fixed the corral fence when he heard hooves approach. A lone rider came up the road, straight-backed, wearing a blue army coat faded by years and war. The sight made Eli's stomach twist. The man rode like someone who had buried too many. When he dismounted, his eyes found Mercy, and hers went wide, hand flying to her mouth. Thomas, she whispered. The world seemed to stop breathing. The man stepped forward, hat in hand. Mercy, they told you I died. The fever took my company, but I lived. I've been walking home since autumn. The words struck like bullets. The twins froze by the fence, the laughter dying on their lips. Eli felt something inside him drop away. He looked at Mercy, searching her face for denial, but there was none, only shock, guilt, and the cruel ache of impossible truth. That night, the house was silent except for the fire's slow breathing. Thomas sat at the table, eyes hollow, tracing the rim of a tin cup. Mercy stood near the stove, shawl drawn tight. I buried you, she said. I made a cross with my own hands. Thomas nodded. I know, I saw it. I came too late. And now? She asked quietly. What do you want from me? My wife, he said simply. The word cut through Eli like wind through glass. He looked away, jaw tight. She isn't property, he said. You can't just walk in from the grave and claim her. And who are you to tell me that? Thomas snapped. A man who took my place while I rotted on the trail? Mercy's voice rose, trembling but steady. No one took your place. I built a life out of what was left. You were... Gone, Thomas. I had to keep breathing. The door opened then. Sheriff Tom Dixon, with Judge Skelly beside him, their coats still crusted with trail dust. "Heard there's a matter of law here," the sheriff said carefully. "Best we settle it proper." They laid out the facts. Silas Reed's false claim, the debt note, the grave with Mercy's handmade cross. The judge studied the papers, frowning. "If her husband lives," he said, "the debt is void. But so is her widowhood. Mercy Hale, by law, remains Mrs. Thomas Hale." The words sat heavy as stones. Mercy closed her eyes. She had prayed once for her husband to live, and now that prayer had come true like a cruel trick. After the judge left, the house felt smaller. Thomas reached for her hand. "We can start over," he said. "You don't belong here." Mercy looked toward the twins sleeping in the next room, then to Eli, standing silent by the door. "I belong where I'm needed," she said softly, "and where I've been kind." That night, Eli sat on the porch, rifle across his knees, watching the road glimmer under starlight. Mercy joined him, wrapping a shawl over her shoulders. They didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she said, "I don't know what's right anymore." Eli looked at her, eyes tired but warm. "Maybe right isn't something you find," he said. "Maybe it's something you build, board by board, day by day." Inside, Thomas watched them through the window, his hand tightening on the cup until it bent. And far out beyond the cottonwoods, Silas Reed's laughter echoed through the night, carried on a wind that promised more trouble yet to come. The thaw brought no peace. The air smelled of wet earth and old secrets. Thomas had taken to the barn, working from dawn to dusk, trying to prove he still belonged. Eli let him, though every hammer strike felt like a reminder that nothing was settled. Mercy moved between them like someone balancing a lit candle. Careful, quiet. Her heart aching for the children caught in between. Silas Reed was locked in the sheriff's custody, but his shadow hadn't left. Red Jack Barlow and his men lingered near the North Ridge, waiting for weakness. Rumors of revenge hung over the ranch like smoke waiting for fire. One night, the wind turned sharp. Mercy was tucking Clara into bed when she smelled it. Smoke, heavy and wrong. She ran to the window. Orange light bloomed behind the barn. "Fire!" she cried. Eli was already out the door, shouting for buckets. Thomas followed, grabbing his coat and a shovel. The barn roof was burning bright, flames snapping up into the sky. Cattle bawled, terrified. The twins screamed from the porch. Mercy didn't hesitate. She ran straight into the smoke, covering her mouth with her shawl. "Mercy!" Eli shouted, but she was gone into the blaze. Inside, the heat was a living thing. The mare thrashed, rope tangled around her halter. Mercy climbed the stall gate, soot streaking her face. "Easy, girl," she whispered, voice steady despite the chaos. "Easy now." She cut the rope with a hay knife and led the trembling animal into the yard. Thomas appeared beside her, eyes wild. "You're mad." "No," she said, coughing hard, "just not ready to lose another home." They turned as Eli burst through the back, hauling water. Together, they worked without words, passing buckets, driving back the flames inch by inch. Mercy stumbled once, nearly falling into the burning straw, but Eli caught her arm and didn't let go until the fire hissed under the final pour. By dawn, the barn was half gone, but the animals were alive. Neighbors rode in to help, and the sheriff brought grim news. "Someone poured oil along the north wall," he said. "This wasn't accident." Mercy's heart sank. "Silas," the sheriff nodded. "He escaped last night," Thomas cursed under his breath. "Then I'll find him," Eli stepped forward. "You won't. Not alone. She's my wife," Thomas shouted, voice breaking. "He came for her because of me. I have to make it right." Mercy stood between them, ash in her hair, tears cutting clean lines down her face. "No more fighting," she said softly. This fire already took enough. Silence fell. The twins peeked from the doorway, clutching each other. Mercy went to them, kneeling low. "We're safe," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "We're safe." That night, Thomas packed his bag. "I'm going after him," he said. "Not for revenge, for peace." "And if you don't come back?" Mercy asked. He smiled sadly. "Then you'll know I finally did one thing right." He rode off before sunrise, disappearing into the cold blue distance. Mercy watched until he vanished beyond the ridge. Eli came to stand beside her, smoke still clinging to his clothes. "He's a soldier," Eli said quietly. "Some men only feel whole when they're chasing ghosts." Mercy turned to him, exhaustion softening her voice. "And you? What do you feel?" "Like a man who found something worth holding and doesn't know if he's allowed to keep it." For a long moment, neither spoke. The dawn spread pink across the blackened barn, lighting the ruin and the promise of rebuilding all at once. Mercy slipped her hand into his. "Then let's just hold on," she said. "One morning at a time." And for the first time since the storm, Eli Barrow let himself breathe. The fire left scars on the ranch, but it also brought a strange kind of peace. When the snows melted, the ash gave way to green, soft shoots pushing through blackened earth. Willow Draw began to breathe again, slow but steady. The barn was half rebuilt, and laughter started returning to the yard like a shy guest finally stepping inside. Mercy worked from dawn till dusk, sleeves rolled, hair tied back. She helped Eli lay new beams, fed the foal-born too early, and taught the twins to plant seeds along the creek. Each day she felt the land pull her closer. This place that had tried to break her was now a part of her bones. One morning, a letter arrived from the sheriff. Thomas Hale had found Silas Reed near the Colorado line. Silas was dead, an outlaw's end, quick and violent. Thomas had been wounded but lived. He refused to return to the ranch. The letter ended simply, "Tell Mercy she is free now, in every way that matters." Mercy folded the letter carefully and sat with it in her lap for a long time. Freedom. The word felt heavy, like something you had to carry before it could carry you. That night, after the children were asleep, she found Eli mending a saddle by lamplight. "It's over," she said softly, setting the letter down beside him. "The past finally buried itself." Eli looked at her for a long time before speaking. "And what about you? Will you stay here, Mercy?" She smiled faintly. "I don't know where else I'd go." "You could start anywhere," he said. "You've got courage enough for 10 lives." "Maybe," she said. "But courage doesn't mean wandering. Sometimes it means staying." They sat in silence after that, the crackle of the lamp the only sound. Outside, frogs sang from the thawed creek and the air smelled of new grass. In the weeks that followed, life returned to its rhythm. Clara helped Mercy bake bread. Jude followed Eli like a shadow, learning how to fix fences and tie rope. The filly grew strong, her coat shining gold in the sun. Every evening they ate together on the porch, the twins telling stories between giggles, Mercy laughing in ways she hadn't in years. One golden evening, as the sun slid low behind the hills, Eli turned to her. "Mercy," he said quietly, "you came here to clean a barn. You saved my children, my home, and me more times than I can count. I can't offer riches or ease, but I can offer truth, and a heart that's never been more certain. If you'll stay, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel alone again." Mercy's eyes shone in the fading light. She looked at the twins chasing fireflies, at the fields reborn from ash, and at the man whose steadiness had become her shelter. "You already have," she said softly. They didn't speak again for a long while. Eli reached for her hand, and she let him take it. The sky deepened to violet, stars waking one by one. Somewhere in the barn, the mare nickered, and the foal answered. A small sound of life, simple and right. By spring's end, Willow Draw had its wedding. There were no grand speeches, just neighbors and laughter. The twins scattering wildflowers and May from the creek settlement, singing a song that sounded older than time. Mercy wore no veil, only her shawl, mended and whole again. Afterward, she and Eli stood on the porch as twilight settled. Clara and Jude slept inside, curled together like two halves of the same dream. The ranch was quiet, alive, and at peace. "We started with nothing," Mercy said. "Just work and hope," Eli smiled. "That's all the West ever gave anyone, and all the best of us ever needed." And as the stars gathered above Willow Draw, Mercy leaned her head on his shoulder, knowing that at last she had found not just a home, but the kind of love that survives every season.